everyone, and welcome to Back Alley Chat. Today, I have a special guest, Allie Severino.
Yay!
And I have a special interviewer, Kristina Pinelli.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, for sure. So, when I had Lauren on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, she was like, "Hey, did you ever do an episode about like your story?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Oh, you should do that because maybe like people that come on don't know who you are. Maybe they want to learn more." And I said, "Well, that's not a bad idea. So next time I don't have a guest, maybe I'll do that." And so it happens that I need to film a couple episodes over this weekend because I'm going on vacation.
Woo!
And I was going to have like a bye week, but I don't want to do that to you guys.
We don't want it either.
You know what I mean?
Keep it coming.
So welcome to this special episode. And so, yeah, I put on my Instagram some questions of whatever you guys wanted to ask. So you guys are technically the interviewer and Kristina is your human mouth. She's going to ask the questions that you guys want to know. And yeah, I guess we're going to tell a little bit of my story and just see where it goes from there.
Yes, we are.
So, Kristina?
So, all right. So let's start here because I know when you were on TV...
God, is this how people feel when I'm talking to them? This is terrible. Okay, I'm scared. Go ahead.
This is it. When you were on TV, they didn't really focus on your life per se. They were little snippets, but we know mostly about what you did.
Right.
So give us the backstory because we keep hearing all your guests talk about theirs. What's yours?
So, long 33-year story short. I was born in North Jersey. Mom and dad, Francis and Jennifer, they're great. But they weren't great for each other. So they got divorced at, I don't know, it was like 1 or 2. And then when I lived with my mom, we moved a lot, so much that like I failed first grade, right? Kept like switching schools so many times. And when I was 7, okay, the story, everyone's got their own story. My mom, my dad, and me, we all have a different, I was 7, so okay.
Perspective
Obviously,
is everything.
I don't know the whole story, but long story short, I went to Disney and with a friend of the family, my dad's ex-girlfriend who became friends with my mom, probably because they were like talking mad smack, right? Mm-hmm. I get it, common enemy. So anyway, I went to Disney with her, and when we came back, my mom was not home, and the house was empty, so she had started moving or had moved. And
without letting you guys know, she just packed up her...
I was unaware, right?
Wow.
And from the way that the woman who took me to Disney reacted, it seemed like she was unaware too. Because I remember spending time at my neighbor's house. They were trying to figure out like what exactly is going on. And then I ended up on a plane to go see my dad. Story is that my stepdad, Joe, rest in peace. My dad liked Joe a lot. He got stabbed by his landlord. Not funny, but he got stabbed by his landlord a couple years ago and passed away. Wow. Whole nother story.
God.
I guess he showed up to pick me up and my dad was like, kick rocks. I'm taking my kid home.
Right.
And then I lived with my dad ever since then. So, and my dad was sober at that time. My mom was not. And years went by and then my mom and dad got back together.
Really? How old were you when that happened?
I think I was probably like 11 or something.
Let me ask something here.
Sure.
So were you hopeful that they were going to get back together? Because I'm putting myself in the shoes of an 11-year-old and I'm thinking at that age, not growing up in like a complete family environment, I'm hopeful. This is my shot that my family is going to be united. Was it like that? Or were you over it at that point? Were you like, this is not normal for me?
It was different because after I had gone to live with my dad when I was 7, I didn't see or talk to my mom for many years.
Right.
So there was a huge chunk of time that I didn't. She had a whole nother kid, my little sister during that time. And I had never seen her. I was just not really part of their thing until my grandparents kind of reunited us one day. My grandparents brought me to see my mom for the first time in like many years. And we did like Christmas, Easter, my birthday. Like my mom had this whole thing set up, which was really cool. And that's kind of how we reconnected. And then her and my dad, I guess that's how they reconnected.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then, I don't know. My dad started drinking, whatever. Long story short, those two, they're just like oil and water. Okay. And so a few phone calls happened. I ended up in foster care. My mom didn't want to, whatever. Okay. I'm not here. They did the best they could with what they had and how they thought they could do best at the time.
Sure.
So then I ended up in foster care for a little bit. My friend Amy, her parents became certified foster parents so I could live with her. And at this time, I'm already smoking weed. I'm the first time I smoked weed, I was in 5th grade. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just a bong noise, right? I was like, that's cool, right?
What'd you think?
I don't know. The first couple times I didn't really feel anything. Wow. I didn't really feel much, you know?
Sure it wasn't oregano?
Right? I don't know is what it was. And I was scared, you know? I was like a scaredy cat. I never wanted to try like any of this stuff. I was you would think I was the ringleader, but I really wasn't. So yeah, I started doing that. And then when I was living with Amy, you know, we were watching a commercial one night and we were like, it was for tents, you know, or some sporting goods store. And they had these tents and we were like, bro, brilliant. We need to get a tent and put it in the backyard, right? And we're going to live in the tent every night during summer and it's going to be our party palace. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
Like,
I think most kids think that.
Hell yeah. So we're in this tent in the backyard getting litty every night. Like we're in 8th grade. Okay. Lost my virginity in that tent. You know, it was just popping out there. So literally popping. And her parents are getting a little, you know, they're having thoughts about this tent. So one night this is how we got caught. So one night it's pouring rain upstate New York. And we're like, we want to go to the tent because we were trying to smoke, right?
Right.
And they're like, why do you want to go to the tent? It's pouring out. We were like, yeah. So we're like, well, we're going to try it. We're going to just try it out, right? So we get up to the tent, this monsoon, and we're in there and we're like smoking. And then we see like all the lights in the house go off, right? And we're thinking like, oh, they're trying to see if we have a light in the tent. Right. They're smart. So whatever. Long story short, we finish smoking. We hear things around the tent. Are we paranoid or are there people around? Is it an animal? We don't know what's going on. So the tent is flooding, by the way. So we got to get out of there.
And
we
so
can't,
is the blunt you're holding?
Right. You know, we got to get out of here. We can't spend the night. So I go, all right, we got to. And we had just started smoking. So we're high and we're dying laughing. So we got to get it together to go inside. You know, we take a deep breath. We get centered. We're ready to go face the parents, the parentals, right? So it's pouring, like I said, and we're on the top of this hill. So we got to run down the hill and get inside. So we're like, all right, we got to make a run for it. Ready?
This is a project.
Run. Fall on our asses, fly down this massive hill. We're muddy, twigs in our hair. We're dying laughing. We can't stop. We can't get it together. We're like, we're a mess. Anyway, we got caught well, you know, we're in her room. I was like, yo, I'm so hungry. She's like, we cannot eat. I'm like, I'm starving. So hungry, please. We go to the kitchen. We're just going to get something small, a granola bar, right? We get 7-course meal where, the mashed potatoes look good. So of course her mom was she came down, was like looking at us in her eyes, like, whatever.
How's your snack?
So they searched our rooms and that's how that went. I was working at the time at a summer camp and, I ended up actually running away from their house and the job at one point just because I was I was going through a lot. I'm 13, mm-hmm. You know, I'm away from my family. I have all this stuff going on. I feel like I'm an adult, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was just a lot was going on. So eventually they ended up kicking me out of their house and I went to a for real group home far away from where I was from, like an hour plus away.
What was that? I have to ask because group homes like where I grew up, they were rough. Yeah. Was it rough in Jersey?
Well, we were in the boonies. Like I was like upstate New York.
Oh, upstate New York.
I mean, there was 4 boys in the house and they were a little rougher. And then there was me and a couple other girls came in. One of them tried to poison the other girl. So I don't know. I made friends with that girl right away. It was rough, but it was, it was all right.
No biggie.
You know, I made it happen.
Right.
Smoking cigarettes, going to school, smoking weed.
How were you in school? Were you good?
No, I was failing everything. You know, I failed 9th grade 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. I was barely getting by.
Wow.
So.
Okay. Well.
So anyway, go back home. Dad, DCF's still involved, and he decides that he wants to move to Florida because New York's depressing, and so he was going down here for work.
It's so cold,
right? And
expensive.
Yeah, and you come to Boca, and it's beautiful, and so this is where he wanted to be. So, a little bit later, I moved down here, and I was so mad at my dad. Obviously, I was gonna get married to my high school sweetheart up there, and I had my life planned out and all my friends, and I was pissed.
Yep.
And I came down here, and I felt really out of place because we moved to West Boca, which is very hoity-toity, and that's not a family that I come from. Like, I come from a blue-collar family, all the way blue-collar. So, and the big difference was down here, people were actually doing, like, in New York, you had real drugs, heroin, crack, meth, right?
Designer drugs down here.
Bro, I come down here and it's like ecstasy, Xanax, blues, all these things were going on that I had never been introduced to in New York. You know, at this point I had only done, not only, I'm a baby still, 14, but I had only done like coke, ecstasy. I smoked a little freebase, weed, right? The regular standard stuff. Nothing
entry level.
Nothing crazy.
Entry level recovery candidate.
And then I moved down here and it was on. It was
everything that was pressed, basically, right?
Yeah, well, no, drugs were all right back then. Drugs are pure back then. Today, I wouldn't trust a Xanax off the street, period. Right. But back then, the pharmacy was giving out so much of this stuff that you knew where you were getting
on the streets.
Yeah, you knew what you were getting, in my opinion. So, yeah, I met my best friend. So the guy I was dating, who I was going to marry, right?
Right.
So I moved down here, and obviously I'm distraught because I had to leave him, and he gets a new girlfriend like right away.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
The pain as a child. Really though, the pain as a young teenage girl.
Oh my god!
Is rough. Those are hard.
It's hard. So one night the new girlfriend calls me to complain about him, which I already knew he sucked. I was like, yeah, he sucks. Why do I want to be with him? I don't know, right? So I go for a walk. I'm like, I'm going to go. One of my favorite pastimes is swinging, right? On the swings or whatever. Time to think. I enjoy it. So I'm like, I'm going to go walk and swing on the swings and just think and listen to my CD player. So on my way back from that excursion, it's like the middle of the night. I meet this kid. He's on a bike and he's like, hey, you want to go to a party? And I was like, sure. Cool. Where's the party at? And I'm not like that. I like to get, so he was like, well, it's not really a party. I'm just kind of getting high at my house. I said, even better. That's what I want to hear.
Perfect.
So I'm like, where do you live? He goes, oh, down this street. I go, oh, me too. Oh, down this street. Oh, me too. He ends up being exactly my next door neighbor.
What are the odds?
Homies for life. Right? Zach Attack, my homie, straight up. Still to this day. So anyway, he, happily introduces me to all the things I've been missing out on. And yeah. It just kind of went downhill from there. So long story short, I end up starting to sell drugs.
What were you selling?
Mainly ecstasy.
What were you selling it for back then?
$10 to $15 a pop, depending on what I got it for. You know what I mean?
Did you have like a good
I had a decent hookup
ratio?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. The problem with ecstasy is that people stay up all night. They're banging on your window 3 o'clock in the morning, like couldn't get any sleep. But I loved it. I was like, this is great. Found my calling, Dad.
This is it. Dad, I'm going to be a drug dealer. You're going to make me so proud.
So that's what I did for some time. And then I started dating this kid who he had been sober, I think. And then he showed up at my house. And I think he was like, in the midst of a relapse, basically. But I didn't know he had been sober. Not that I would have cared, but so he wanted to get, and blues were big. So I started doing oxys. And I guess this was on my 16th birthday, I think it was. I was trying to get ecstasy actually, and this girl I used to deal with all the time. So I was like, hey, you got any blues, right? I was trying to find blues. And she was like, yeah. And I get to her and she gave me a blue dolphin, which is ecstasy pill. I'm like, bitch, are you retarded? I'm looking for, what? Right? What?
Right.
So anyway, I get my hand on, and I don't know why I wanted to do them so bad, but after that day, I did them every day. Like.
That was it, huh?
That was it. That was totally it. That fast. And I had done them before, and it didn't take control of me like that. But this time that I did it, it was over.
Hooked.
Yeah. So,
ever any, not to jump ahead, but ever any heroin? Because I know for me, I never did it. I got one time, I got a bag that I thought was blow, and I knew the color was off, and I actually just did it anyway, and it was heroin. And
really,
anything like that ever happened with you?
No, because to get dope down here, you had to go all the way down to Miami back then.
Whoa!
No one did dope around here.
That's kind of a hike to. I mean, I guess not.
It's 45 minutes is
hike. Well. I guess
to be in high school, you know what I mean? It's a project to get down to Miami, and the heroin wasn't as strong as the Oxy 80s that we were getting, and the 80s were cheaper. I mean, we had Pill Mill on every corner. I had 3 right next to my house. When I started doctor shopping, I was going to 12 doctors a month.
And they were all giving you scripts.
All giving me the same 3 scripts. Oxy 80s, Roxy 30s, and Xanax.
Wow.
You know, so I was getting hundreds of pills from each doctor.
So young, too. It's
right.
Like frightening, I think.
And I mean, it wasn't. I was paying for an older man to go to all his doctors. I had this whole thing going on. So
wow, well orchestrated.
Bro, okay? I was going places.
You were going somewhere, probably to prison. But clink, clink.
Right, exactly. Well, they say don't do drugs, because if you do drugs, you'll go to prison, and drugs are very expensive in prison. Get it? I think it's George Carlin. I don't know.
I think you're right.
So, yeah, well, that's what ends up happening. So, not to, ruin the story, but, I end up with this kid, and he thankfully had a truck, which was great, a way to get around. And the guy who I always sold ecstasy. And when I started selling the pills, this guy, we used to call him Big Gay Mike, BGM, which is like AOL. The acronym.
His username?
Yeah, what we called him, like BGM, da-da-da. So he showed up at my house one night, and he was like, and this guy, he was older. He's like in his 30s. And he was like, hey, I want to try to get rid of these for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. And he was like, I'm going to start you out with 100. And I was like, ooh, it's a lot, right? Nervous, you know.
Was this a nice person? Was
no.
This someone you defeat? No,
okay. Not a nice person. Okay. And he was gay, so he really didn't mind, like, he had no, thing for women. Right. Understood. There was no, like, oh, I got to be nice to you because you're a woman. He was very, like.
This is business.
Yeah. So I was a little nervous, and then they were gone within an hour.
That fast?
That fast.
And you were selling them for?
$15. It depends. Wow. I would call my competitors, see how much they were selling it for, do $1 less usually.
Wow.
That was my thing that I would do.
At such a young age. My mind didn't work like that.
I know.
At 15 or whatever. Wow.
I was trying to make it happen.
Okay, keep going. This is exciting.
So I start doing that, and the kid I was dating had a girlfriend at the time, and I've apologized and made my amends, even though she blocked me.
She said, sorry, ma'am.
And I'm sorry. She's still sorry.
She's still sorry. This is your moment.
This is your moment.
She's sorry.
I'm not even going to say her name. So anyway, so they were together, but I would have rather lived over there.
Right.
And long story short, we stole the ferret. Whatever. There's this whole thing about the ferret. Whatever. Somehow her tires got slashed. I don't know. It wasn't me, I don't think. And whatever. So she leaves the house eventually, and we take over. Right. And our drug dealer moves in, and it was just it was a disaster. So anyway, time goes by, and things are getting worse. Now, I don't want people to think I was successful. I wasn't rolling in money. Like, I was doing drugs. I was a junkie, right? And I was junkie stunting the shit out of everybody around me. I sold soapy water to my neighbor. Okay, that's how bad. Like, that's the kind of asshole I was. So I was with him, and he was even worse than me. And so we end up with no money. Rent's due. Lights are getting turned off. This girl, the ex-girlfriend, is blowing up the landlord, talking about, we're selling drugs, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's like, that's her life's mission, is to get us arrested. And so eventually I was like, dude, something needs to change. This is way too much. I was living off of Arizona iced teas and Slim Jims. That was like the only thing I was eating. Cinnamon Toast Crunch with water instead of milk. And so one day we packed up our stuff. We had this last deal we were going to make, and unbeknownst to me, my boyfriend at the time, his mom was about to send him to rehab. And I was about to go home to my dad's. I had just dropped off like a bunch of my clothes back to the house and stuff like that. Like, me and him were both about to move home and just try to do something different, because like things were just getting really out of control. We had, our house was being surrounded by people with guns. Like, people were trying to kill us in our neighborhood. Like, it was just a constant hiding, fighting thing. So so the day we leave, right? So this is the day I'm starting anew, right? God sees me. He's like, good job, Allie. You're doing great. I said, I'm going to do one last drug deal, So that morning I go to Denny's with my drug dealer.
Did it go? I'm not jumping ahead, but those usually go wrong.
Yes, it always goes wrong, right? One more time. One more time.
Yep.
So I pick up Matt because he wanted to be there, and we start to go to Movie Co. here in Boca down the street to do this drug deal or whatever. And this guy I had sold to him multiple times. I met him when I was selling ecstasy. He also sold ecstasy at the same rave club I used to go to. And so he was like my competition. You know what I mean? And then I heard that his connect dried up. And a mutual friend of ours was like, hey, will you sell to this kid Echo, whatever, his connect, blah, blah, blah. Sure. The first time I sold to him, she didn't end up showing up because she got in a massive car accident, which should have been, it was just all the signs were there.
Right.
So I had sold to him multiple times before this. He kept blowing me up. He wanted to buy 1,000 ecstasy, right? Which something felt wrong about it. And because he wanted to pay way too much for it, just didn't feel right. So I kept telling him no. Matt answers the phone, and he was like, well, I'll take whatever you guys got. Like, what do you got? And we're like, well, we got the Oxys, Roxys, and the Zans. And he was like, all right, I'm going to buy them. Cool. Go to Movie Go, jump in his car, doing all sorts of math, because obviously he's got an 80s and 30s and Zan, everything's a different price. So I'm trying to do all the, and then I go, put your hands in the air. And I look up, and there's just cops with ski masks everywhere and big old guns. Yeah, it was the organized crime task force. They had been watching me.
Can't fool the city, girl.
Can't fool the city,
man. They know
Boca
what's
Raton,
up.
they're on top of it. Yep. Arresting 17-year-olds. Great job. So, yeah, so it was bad, and I thought I was on a TV show because I'm at the movie theater. So there's this music playing, this dramatic music on the outside, dun, dun, dun. And I'm like, is this happening to me for real right now? This can't be real life. And I'm thinking because I'm 17, I'm straight. That was kind of always my thinking was they can't really mess with me until I'm an adult.
Right.
Wrong. So I get in the cop car and they're like, I said, does this mean I can't be a police officer anymore?
Oh my God.
Trying to butter him up.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So, that was basically how that all.
Wow. What did you feel in that moment? Were you pompous at the time? Because
yes.
Yeah.
I was always like that. I was constantly that kind of person. I just didn't care. I had no respect for anybody, and I just thought I was truly invincible.
Yeah.
And I think that's at age.
Yep.
And so, but I wasn't. So I get in there and I'm like, I'm not going to tell you, both my parents are dead. You're not calling anybody. You're beat, right? You're not calling Francis right now. You're crazy. So I get arrested. It's early. It's the afternoon. They don't make contact with Francis till 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm not giving up the goods. I'm like, no way, bro.
Strong in your conviction.
Right. He's going to murder me. I'm not scared of you at all. I'm scared of Francis big time.
Right.
So, and they take my phone, right? My phone's blowing up. Everyone's trying to get their pills and shit. I'm like, oh my God. So they, long story, they get me over to the juvenile detention center, this holding cell place. And I said, can I use the phone? And back then you knew everyone's number by heart, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm calling everybody, right? And the lady's like, you got a big circle. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? I'm like, don't pick up the phone. The cops have it. The cops have my phone. The cops have my phone. I'm just trying to tell everybody. And then I got on the phone with Francis. And he goes, what exactly did he say? Something like, I don't give a fuck. Click.
Wow. Tough love. See, tough love at its finest.
Something like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm going to murder you. Click. So that was good.
Yeah, I got arrested and it was expunged. It was a small little thing. It was nothing major.
What was it though?
Well, I was pretty high and I went to a Macy's and just started shoveling fake jewelry. It wasn't funny then. Still not funny, but yeah. And I was so scared to let my parents know. They were away for the weekend and I hired my own lawyer.
Wow.
I appeared, I did my community service. I had my lawyer paid, my case thrown out and expunged, sealed. It's never happened, all on my own. And my parents found out because, those freaking lawyer referral service bullshit kept sending
to your house.
Hire us, hire me for your case. And then, yeah.
Those are the biggest snitches of all time.
But I get it. My parents scared me more than anything. And I had a fear for authority to a degree, like police officers. Mm-hmm. And I was scared of that shit. I was scared of jail. But my parents. I was like, I will figure it out. You will not know.
Right.
And damn lawyer referral services.
Right? That's messed
crux.
up.
Your crux.
Yeah, so that then I stayed in there for a couple months, and at first I just didn't really understand the severity of it. I just truly didn't understand, and I did not understand until my dad said to me on the phone when I was in jail. He goes, "Do you know why this is such a big deal?" I was like, "Not really. Can someone tell me like what's the what's the problem here? Like I get it's illegal, but I didn't understand 120 years in prison. That sounds dramatic, okay?" So, and my dad was basically like, "Well, the reality is you could have killed somebody." With the drugs that you sold them.
Right.
Well, I never even thought about that. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So they end up charging me as an adult. So they transfer me from the juvenile detention center to gun club, which is like the adult jail here, county jail. And, each time I went to court, that was the first time I ever heard that school wasn't important. The judge didn't even care that I had school. He was like, school is the last thing you should be worried about right now. Like you're in a lot of trouble. And I was like, damn.
Scared yet or no?
Yeah, I was scared. But, when I first got in there, I was detoxing. That was my main concern was that I needed, I did not feel very good. And back then, it was very rare to have such a young person. Like, they hadn't seen anybody detoxing like me when I got to the juvenile detention center. It was just not super common. And I was really, really not doing well. And so I was going through that and then also going through, everything else that came with, I was on the news a lot. Once they charged me as an adult and they could, put me in the news, they did a lot. And, my poor dad had to deal with it. I was front page of the paper and he's going to work and, and I know it was just so much on him too and whatever. It was just a lot for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I was mainly thinking about myself at the time, but.
No, but it's humiliating for everyone, right? They say the disease doesn't discriminate. It affects the people closest to you also. And
yep. Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. So I had a $60,000 bond, which is crazy.
Did Francis want to pay this? Or
eventually, Francis bonded me out to house arrest.
Wow.
So, and the whole time, so now I'm realizing wow, I'm in here because of drugs, right? This is the only reason I'm in here is because of drugs. And I had spoken to this therapist lady and she was, trying to encourage me. And I was like, well, what about when I turn 21? I can't drink, or at my wedding, I'm not going to be able to drink. What are you saying to me right now? It was just a new concept. I had never considered abstinence. I don't know. I had never really considered it.
Right.
And, so I was like, all right, well, definitely the hard drugs are bad, right? I definitely agree with that. Mm-hmm. I agree with you there, man. Pot? Right? And what about weed? So, but I was like, I'm going to try. So, and the only thing I could really think about was a cigarette I had at my dad's house. I knew I had put one cigarette in my drawer months before. And I was like, oh my God, I hope it's still there, So I get home. The whole time I was in jail, I was watching this Checkers commercial. I was like, oh my God, so good. I want to stop there on my way home. Of course, I have a cop bring me home. I was like, Jesus. So I get there, ate some Krispy Kreme, took a shower. It's fantastic.
And you're in house arrest now,
I'm on house arrest. I go on MySpace, post something. A few minutes later, on my window, and it's my homies, right? They're like, yo, you're home. What's up? We brought you some blunts. And I was like, yo, I can't smoke. Just a little bit, right?
The cops just dropped me off, right this second.
I didn't have the ability to say no. I still at that point had no coping mechanisms, and I did not know how to say no when I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say yes, but I shouldn't have said, right? So that's a hard thing to learn.
Seed wasn't planted yet.
No.
In its entirety.
And I just didn't have the ability yet. So I did that my first day at. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to drink. And that was disgusting. I hate alcohol. Everyone knows that. Still, I just hate it.
Yes.
So yeah, I started doing drugs again a week later. Started selling drugs about 2 weeks later. And so by the grace of God, didn't go to prison while I was on house arrest. Was on phone school, which was interesting.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so basically for kids that were sick or, who couldn't leave their house back then, they would give you this phone that you have in an office. Right? And you call into school and your teacher's on speakerphone with the other students. Yeah. And you have to do your homework online and
Wow.
Yeah,
That's kind of cool.
And you still had all the textbooks with you. It wasn't like, you know, all online.
And it was a live teacher that was teaching over the phone, right?
Yeah.
Like on a conference call, essentially?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was really interesting.
Were you able to follow along with that? Because I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, well, at first I was doing pretty good because I thought if the judge saw I got good grades that maybe he'd like help me out a little bit. But, you know, I had different moments. Like one time I wasn't muted and someone was like, get the crack, something crazy like that. My teacher pulled me into a conference call and I was like, I'm so sorry.
Pulled
like,
me into a conference call.
What a joke, right? So,
wow.
Yeah. So I get a call from my lawyer and he's like, yeah, so, well, they've settled on 3 years. I was like, 3 years? What do you mean 3 years? What are we talking about here? You couldn't get a kid off? Like, what am I? So then I stopped going to school after that because I was like, why am I even doing this shit? I'm going to just chill and have fun and just do it up, right? And so then when we actually went to court and I had an amazing judge, Judge George LaBarga. I talk about him all the time. He's a Florida justice of the Supreme Court now. But and he was actually trying to get that seat while he was doing my case. And so they gave him the 3-year thing. He said no. He said, I'm not doing that to this young person. I'm not sending her to prison for 3 years. You got to come up with another plan, right?
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Right. So then they came up with the 6 years of probation. And I was just like, oh, God, I kind of wanted to take the 3 years because I was thinking like, realistically to me at that moment, Kristina, I didn't believe I could successfully complete 6 years. So if I'm going to go to
6
prison
months,
anyway,
right. I get you.
6 years is a long time.
6 years of you thought you said
probation.
6 months.
Probation, 6 years, 3 drug tests a month for 6 years is a very long time.
It's a long time to be tied to the system, for sure.
And if I mess up, I have to go to prison, right? So it's like, why not get it over with,
right?
And just go now
right.
Because I really couldn't. I didn't want to do it. I didn't even want to get sober, right? I wasn't interested super into that, right? I didn't really care. So I didn't have the faith in myself, really. But you know, that's what I ended up with, the 6 years of probation. And that day, me and my dad went to eat. He gave me a couple bucks and I was on my own. And then I was homeless. That's when my, living outside, whatever, friend's house, wherever I could go started. Started selling crack, smoking crack, which was not the best. And finally, I had to go get an assessment at the Drug Abuse Foundation. And I know one of the questions was like, when did you have an aha moment, right? And this was it. So I go to the Drug Abuse Foundation. They have to drug test you, right? And so someone had told me this. So I brought urine with me because I was like, well, I don't want to fail the drug test and like go to prison, right? What a catch-22. What a stupid way to have a system, by the way. You know, it's so dumb because they have to report that back to your probation officer. So it's like, what are we doing? Anyway, so I have someone else's urine. I go to the bathroom. I didn't realize they're going to be like watching me or whatever. So I try to use the urine, put it in the cup. Instead, it gets all over me. All over the pants. That always happens. All over. I have Kristina. I'm now sitting at this state-ran facility with someone else's piss all over my pants. Okay,
cute.
Yeah, super cute. And so I was like, wow. I don't even know what to do from here. Where do I go?
I imagine you really being grossed out because you're not good with that kind of shit.
No, I'm not. I'm really not.
God, I know when I ran the halfway houses, there was a girl. She always used to like try and do the fake piss test, and she had like a squeeze bottle, and this girl would shake in the bathroom like everything's fine. Like she'd be so nervous. It's always it doesn't work, guys.
No, I mean
it works.
It's worked for me.
I don't recommend it.
So now I'm in a predicament, right? Because now I'm either going to fail this drug test and go to prison,
right?
Or not take it and go to prison, right? So I said, is there a supervisor I can talk to? And they're like, well, why? What's going on? I said, okay, well, I'm going to tell you what's going on. I'm going to fail every single thing on that drug test. There's not one thing on that test that I'm not going to light it up for except for PCP, okay? If you're trying to figure out if I need outpatient or inpatient, I'm telling you all right now, I need inpatient for as long as humanly possible. So if you're able to work with me on that.
How old are you at this point?
18.
It's a very mature thing to say at 18,
yeah.
Might I add.
So they said, okay. They said, all right. Well, you know what? We're going to do this. I said, amazing. Thank you so much. that night, my dad let me stay at the house that night, and I get home on the door. It's my PO with an undercover cop. This lady was just trying to get my ass. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I was passing all these drug tests, but she knew I was getting high because I was using, someone else's pee the whole time. And so, it was just real. These people were really on my ass. And thank God. Thank God that they were.
Doing their job.
So, then I had to wait for a bed to open up at the Drug Abuse Foundation, which is our state-ran facility down here. And so, while I was waiting, I always say, like, God was like a quarterback, right? Holding me like a football. Like, get out of the way, trying to get me to the touchdown. And if that's how it works. I don't really watch football that much, but that's how I envision him, Yeah. And because I got pulled over with like, $500 of crack on me that fell out in front of the cops. They stole it, Boca PD. How crazy is that? They stole my crack, Boca PD. Okay, just saying. Anyway, I didn't get in any trouble for that. And like a bunch of weird stuff like that was happening to me. And I was just like, wow. So when I finally got in there, petrified, by the way, so petrified. I got kicked out my first day because I had smuggled in Jaeger. I had a really hard time.
Yeah, you had a hard time for sure.
I had a really hard time.
Really difficult.
Just trying to get myself together,
But they're really, okay, although all these things are going on and it's starting to hit you, like, okay, I'm facing all these consequences, I'm fucked. You still don't have anyone, like, to be like, hey, there's a better way. Or, like, hey, we're going to try recovery. Or, like, hey, this is a mentor that's going to help you stay clean. Or, like, something. It maybe not as in your face as, like, a program is. And, like, let's get sponsor into steps. But
nothing.
So that's, you know what? Okay. That's, yes.
I felt like I was on my own out there.
Yeah.
Trying to figure all this out.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand rehab. I remember my best friend had gone to rehab when I was on house arrest, and she called me. I said, did it work? Like, are you cured? Like, did it work? Like, do you think you're going to do drugs when you get out? And she was like, I don't know. I don't think so. But I thought it was like a cure thing.
Sure.
Like, they fix you there.
Sure.
So thank God I thought that, because I was under the assumption that I was going in somewhere and I was not going to do drugs again because they were going to fix my brain. Right.
Exactly.
So yeah. And then I stayed at DAF for 6 months.
What's that like? I know DAF, I used to bring a lot of people in and out of there too.
It's a shithole.
Yeah.
It's nicer now. They've actually made it a lot nicer, but it's not, it's a state-ran facility. Back then it was DOC, like Department of Corrections. So there, everyone there was getting released from prison or, was on a serious probation thing was happening. So it was kind of like that. And, wake you up at 6 a.m. You got to clean, do your chores, you get jail food, just like, and then my therapist was terrible. I got in trouble every day. I almost got kicked out like 3 times. They kept sending me back to residential because I just have behavioral issues. I'm just very
confrontational, defensive, right. Guard up.
Okay, Kristina knows me. And think about me now. I'm like and I'm very rebellious. I just want to do whatever you tell me not to do.
Sure.
Climbing trees. I kept climbing trees, and they were like, "Get out of the tree." I'm like, "Why?"
Yes.
Tell me why.
Talk back to me so I can talk back to you.
Right.
I will out-talk you.
Right.
Technician, a DAF.
I'm going to climb this tree. I remember I climbed up because
it
felt so good up there. I was like, wow, I can see over this
badass
gate. And I could see the world from that tree, right? Because I was so confined in there. And they had these big gates. You couldn't see anything.
Right.
And so I just felt good up there. And so I brought this other girl with me one day up the tree. And this lady, Miss Soline, she's my favorite tech. She was the only tech that was awesome. She comes out like, Allie, get out of there. She's waving her finger, right? And I jump out the tree. Like, I'm like, whoo. And then the girl Jen I'm in there with, she starts crying. I'm like, bro, get down. She's like, I can't. I'm scared. I'm like, jump out of the tree. She's like, I can't. And the lady comes up like, please, ma'am, relax. She's petrified right now. We need to give her a moment to jump out of this tree.
Aww.
But yeah, I met Kelly there. Me and Kelly got there the same day.
Kelly from your Viceland show, right? She was in I think the first episode or the 5th episode.
Yeah, a couple.
Yep.
So rest in peace.
Yes.
And so I met her, and yeah, I had fun. I met my boyfriend, right?
Right.
And yeah.
Do you ever sometimes I know when I talk about my story for years, actually up until not too long ago. Within reason. When I tell these stories and I look back at my life and all the the things that I did, and although we laugh about them, sometimes I get so stuck in my head about them and they become real for a minute because they were such traumatic, scary situations I put myself in, and my heart just goes boom. And then I realize, wow, okay, I've turned it around. Like, I'm here now. That was the old me. I can say I was young and dumb. I can say it was a growth. Does that ever happen for you, though, where in your mind,
I don't know.
You know what
I
mean?
feel like I have like had so many difficult things happen in recovery that like, that even though I was hurting myself and the people around me a lot, it was like, it's drugs. Like, I was on drugs. But in recovery, it was like just dealing with something like, that my last relationship, that was like a total nightmare. That was like the worst time of that was worse than me on drugs.
So real quick then, so you stay in DAF for how long? And then what?
6 months. And then I did outpatient. I didn't have anywhere to live. So I rented out Nikki's couch for $100 a week.
Right.
And I was living there. I was dating this kid, Kevin. And, he couldn't really stay sober. I ended up relapsing after 9 months. I ended up drinking with Kelly. Well, she didn't drink, but it's something I hated. But I didn't want to get drug tested, all that stuff. I drank a Grey Goose and cranberry juice, which actually wasn't bad. I was like, wow, you can barely taste it, I'm having a great time. I'm in the hood, by the way, Kristina, because I'm with Kelly. So I'm off of Tamarind Avenue in some dope house, right? Getting drunk. Okay, these kids are coming to buy drugs, and the guy has porn on the TV, and I'm thinking,
trap house.
Wow, it's been a day, one day, and I'm already back here. I cannot make this a habit again. I got to get out of here. So anyway, that morning I called Nikki. And I told her I had relapsed and I was not feeling good about myself. And I went to a meeting. I picked up a white because I was really like, bro, I cannot be hanging out with these people like this. Like,
sure,
that's crazy. That's like, no.
Sure. Is that your first meeting or like?
No, I had been going, but I had stopped. I had a sponsor when I was in the halfway house, but I had lost contact with her. She was in the halfway house too. I just wanted to ask somebody. I didn't care who it was. I just wanted to break the ice and do it.
Right.
So I had not really worked my steps really, and I didn't have a home group, and I didn't have a sponsor, and I wasn't doing the things that they fucking tell you to do, right? If you don't do those things, it's not going to work. That's what I tell everybody when they're like, well, is this going to work? I don't know if it's going to work. You need to do it, or your loved one needs to do it. Nothing's going to cure them. They're just going to give you the tools, and you have to actually learn and use them. So after that, I got a new sponsor, and I immediately jumped into all my steps, immediately joined a home group, immediately did my, not 90 and 90, I went to a meeting every day for years.
Wow, years.
Yeah, years.
Committed.
Yeah, super committed. I had many sponsees, and all that stuff. I left Kevin eventually after one of his relapses and, felt good to stay sober through that and grow and be alone for the first time, to be single for the first time in recovery. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh my. Well, it started off terrible. I was watching a lot of, what was it? Seinfeld. Seinfeld's never about love. It's a perfect show to watch when you're going through a heartbreak. In my
slapstick
opinion.
comedy. It's great.
Right.
And relatable.
Right. I got my own apartment, a little studio in Delray Beach, and I started a garden, and I started hanging out with my friends, and it was great. I loved it. I really enjoyed those years. And then, I wrote my perfect man down, which I talk to you about all the time. Mm-hmm. But it was something that changed my life because, I had constantly lowered my standards. I didn't even know what my standards were. What do I want? What do I want? So, my sponsor at the time had told me, well, write down your perfect man. What do they look like? What do they act like? What do they have? Where do they come from? Right? All those things. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And if a guy would come up to me, I would measure him up. And nope, sorry, not interested. And I was very serious about it.
Sure.
And then I met Jay, and he was great, and I still care about him. Think he's great. Just didn't work out.
You're a great guy, Jay. You
yeah,
really are.
Yeah, we love you, Jay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so then it didn't work out. Mm-mm. And now you're what? Now what are you doing for work? At this point, you have your magazine. Am I wrong?
Yes, I had my magazine at that time. So when I first got sober, I couldn't get a job to save my life because I had no GED, no car, no license, no learner's permit, no bank account,
no docs,
no diploma. I had nothing.
Nobody.
I was nothing, right? So I had a really hard time, and I had felonies, and I was on probation, and I had a 6 p.m. curfew and all that stuff. So it was really hard for me to find work. So I ended up in call centers and all that stuff, doing the timeshares and slanging all sorts of bullshit. Mm-hmm. And yes, and then I got my real estate license eventually. And then I hated it. Well, it was like 2008.
It's the thing to do.
Well, no, everything crashed. So it was a terrible time to be in real estate.
I was thinking that wasn't everybody getting a real estate license at that point.
Maybe.
Though everyone was either,
it's possible,
right? Trying to get one foot in the door with
right,
real estate,
right?
Because I have it in my back pocket.
And I was a baby. People were looking at me. I sold some houses, but
baby. But you had it. You were smart.
I was trying to make it happen.
And determined.
Yes, very.
You have a lot of energy if you're passionate about something.
I do.
Go hard with it. So. All right.
So then I started the magazine. It was Addiction Recovery Magazine, and I would sell ads to people, and I write all the content and do all that, which was really awesome. And but I told my dad one day, I said, Dad, I'm trying to sell these people ads. I'm asking for thousands of dollars, but they looking me up and they're reading all these terrible things about me. And my dad said, well, why don't you reach out to the lady who wrote them about you? So I said, all right. So I reached out to this lady from the Palm Beach Post, Sun Sentinel. And I said, hey, you wrote this thing about me. I was just wondering, if we could chat, whatever. And she saw that my signature said CEO, Fresh Start Magazine. So she was like, hey, I noticed whatever. Like, what is that? I was like, yeah, I started this little magazine. And so she was actually leaving Sun Sentinel. It was going to be her last month at the paper. And she did this amazing Sunday spread on Fresh Start and like what I was doing now and all that good stuff. So that was kind of like, I had all the bad stuff in the paper. Then that was like my first good thing that kind of launched
public
everything.
Comeback.
Yeah.
Yep. Pushing all the articles down
right.
and the news bright.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Push that all down. We're going to hop on the Google algorithm.
Exactly. So that was the goal then. And then, I ended up opening a Sober Living a couple years later, and I kind of let the magazine go. I kept trying to hire salespeople. They all sucked. They couldn't close a window. So, and I couldn't do it all. So, then not, a couple years later, the Vice thing happened. We shot American Relapse, which I never thought would be anything.
Yes, we made a comeback.
We made a comeback.
We made a big comeback. We made a hair comeback. Everybody.
Oh, the hair in American Relapse was atrocious. I can't even watch it because I look like shit because I was with Blair then, and that was just a tough time in my life when I filmed all that stuff. It was really hard for me. And I was going through a lot at home.
Yep.
And so, it was a lot. And you guys know the rest of the story. I mean, right?
Yeah.
And what are some of the questions that they've asked?
So we have some questions, right?
All right.
That your fans
hit me
wrote in. Here we go.
What you got for me?
We're going to start. So first off, Jay Nasson 216 says, why are so many people against sub-mat treatment and marijuana maintenance?
Oh, great question. In my opinion, probably because they go to a 12-step program similar to me. I didn't even believe in antidepressants and stuff like that when I was in early recovery because they really preach the abstinence thing so hard. And I think people have a really hard time grasping the concept of harm reduction. They don't like it because they can't do it. They don't want anyone to be able to do it.
Sure.
Or they think like, I always hear people say, well, why would you switch one route for another? Hey, what if that person doesn't give a shit that they're switching it out?
Sure.
Have you ever considered that the person that you're talking to doesn't care? They just want to live a life where they're not hurting everybody or dying? Like, we don't got to be perfect. So short answer, I would say generally because we're taught abstinence is the number one way to recover.
Okay. Jelly What said...
Jelly What? My homie. Love him.
Your struggles with being a role model or a celebrity since you seem so humble.
Oh, that's nice, Jelly What? Nice. Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing for sure is I became a little maybe self-conscious or, just nervous to post about stuff or be as outspoken as I can be sometimes because, I don't want... what did they say? A real model, right? I just want to be people to know that I'm not perfect and just understand that and still love me anyway. And but I think we've been able to get there. But that stresses me out, and it.
But you know what? That shows that you take pride.
Right.
You know what I mean? You take pride in the fact and you're aware of the fact that there are people that look up to you or admire you, the work you do, and so on and so forth. And so you care.
Right.
And so it can be difficult challenging to gauge what you're going to say, what you're going to post, while staying authentic to
me.
Alley Cat.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. Great question. Okay. Next one. Jay McCabe says, sex in recovery. Can we hear about your mistakes? Let's go. Here for it.
I don't even know what that is. Mistakes in men or in the
We'll take them. We'll take men. Where do we start?
We need a whole nother episode for that one.
We're not there anymore. She has a wonderful boyfriend now.
Yes, my
wonderful,
my
amazing.
lovey. I love my lovey. But yeah, I mean, I think it's awkward in the beginning, but you just got to do it. And honestly, all these people in the, not all, I don't want to generalize, but some people in 12-step programs will be talking mad shit, like, Joey was saying about the mat and stuff like that. But y'all are still banging hookers, shooting steroids and everything else. Just saying, not everybody, but some people do that.
Sure. Okay. Great. All right, next. So Dark Side Spoon 2.0 said peer recovery coaching versus clinical, and why Dark Spoon's memes are the best.
Okay, Dark Spoon, what is it? I think it's DRK Spoon.
It says DRARK Side Spoon.
Okay, you guys gotta add them because they constantly get taken off Instagram because their memes are they're rough, but they're hilarious. So if you guys like that kind of stuff and you want a great meme page, that's the way to go. And peer versus clinical, I'm all for the peers. I believe we've been there. We've been in the hole. We know how to get you out of the hole. We'll jump in the hole with you and walk out with you. And I think that's what peers are all about. I think that we're super influential beyond clinicians. Clinicians learn this stuff from a book that someone else wrote from reading other books. So I think they're important, and clinicians are, there's a lot that care and stuff like that, which I think is great. But I think peers are where it's at for the people.
Okay, so we have another one. Okay, Josh Schultz said, "Can you come to Dallas?"
Sure. Hey. For what?
And cash up her best friend.
Yeah.
And then I'll send her.
Thanks.
For a small fee. A small fortune. Okay. So let's see here. This is a tough one. I don't know. Can't really. All right, we'll flip to this one. Olivia Day today said, "Why do you always wear flip-flops? On Dope Sick Nation, you wear them in such hazardous areas."
I know.
Yes.
And the worst was when Chris overdosed and I'm running down the railroad tracks and flippies. But I don't like putting my feet in a prison, which kind of feels like socks sometimes. It feels prisonous to my feet.
We always know when you're coming because all we hear is, she doesn't pick up her feet.
Bro, I'm a Florida kid. Here. Yeah, I like my flippy flops. But I've gotten into shoes now, and ever since getting bit by an unbelievable rent ant on my toe, I have since started wearing shoes because I thought my toe was going to fall off. I was like, wow, I have never had such a... It was very painful. So yes, I've changed that.
All right, let's see. Next question. The KP Chronicle said, "What would you do if you were president?"
Favorite question. Okay, so, and you know what? I'm going to cut this clip out when I'm done editing this, and we're going to put presidential music in the background. So, when I run in
Ariana,
20,
how do we feel about that?
All right, we got to be 35 to be president, so we got 2 years. So in 2028, when I run for president, the first thing that I'll put into law is that all of our supplements and vitamins, not all, but a lot of them need to be covered under health insurance. You're telling me I can't get vitamin C? You don't want me to take vitamins? I got to pay $30 for a multivitamin? What is happening here, okay? Yes. We need to do that immediately. That's one. What else would I do? Everybody over the age of 70 is fired immediately from government. Not one person is left. They all get transferred to an awesome advisory board.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
that's
we'll
fair.
listen to them. We'll hear what they have to say, but they're done. You don't know what Twitter is? You're done. Go home.
I'm on board with that.
You're done.
Sounds great.
We'll do that. School. Okay, if I'm taking online courses, why am I paying the same amount of money I paid to go in person?
In class, yeah.
When the teacher just throws stuff on Canva and doesn't do anything? That's crazy. That should be 50% of the cost reduction, and that would be a law if I was president.
Amazing.
That's just a start. If I think of more, I'll let you guys know. But
guys, Allie 2028 merch coming soon. All right, one more question here. I just have to throw this one in here because it's great. It says, Taryn and Luanjian, do you hate socks? You always wear flip-flops on Dope Sick Nation. I know, we know. We had to read it. I had to.
Everyone cares about my feet.
Remember when everyone wanted to pay you?
They still do. They're great.
Yeah, for feet
If I had
photos?
more time, I would do it.
I know. Man.
I'm not against that. I don't hate on it. And you know what? They're much more respectful than the men that actually want to
say yucky things, be disrespectful.
Yeah, the feet guys are way more respectful than them. So,
cool.
They're in my book. They're good peeps in my book.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Casey Creation says, besides following your original program, how did you only go to treatment one time? Great question.
That's a great question. I would say I stayed super involved in the 12-step program, but I guess beyond that, to me, it wasn't really an option. I never allowed myself to think of that as being an option. I gave myself so much to lose, and I also gave myself so much responsibility, or you don't want to call it responsibility, but people that relied on me. When I have all these sponsees, when I'm in the middle of all this stuff, you can't just go missing. Mm-hmm. You got to show up. You got to be responsible. You got to do your thing. So I think that really is what saved me, was getting so involved with so many things within my community.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, Sully Alexis says, what's been the best part and hardest part of your job helping people so far? Love you. So real quick, what do you do now?
Homeless Services Coordinator, City West Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the hardest part?
Honestly, dealing with residents. It's not even dealing with their clients. That's or not even the residents. That and like bureaucratic red tape stuff is difficult, and having compassion, continuing to have compassion, because I do feel I've had a lot of compassion fatigue. I'm very, what is the word? Like really bad stuff can happen and it doesn't faze me.
Yeah.
I'm super desensitized towards a lot of it. So, it does affect me. And, so I do that's something that I need to work on, and I've been working on, and all that good stuff.
Sure. I think it frustrates you more so because of the lack of resources.
Yeah. I want to help these people. These are my people,
yeah.
And so I fight for them. And sometimes I get passionate. My boss loves to give me a hard time about. I get in her office like, what's going on over here? Johnny's da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, what's this world that we're living in? My whole thing. Fire everyone. Everyone needs to be fired. I'm serious. We need to start everything over. Fresh. Alley 2028.
Let's run it. All right. Here's another one. Jay Nathan 216 said, did you have a physical bottom when you decided to get sober? We kind of went over that one. Next one. Okay, Sarah AW 17. What moment in time was most pivotal to your recovery? An aha movement, if you will. Moment, if you will. No, it said aha movement, if you will.
Well, definitely the pee on the pants thing was the one aha moment before I entered recovery. And then I guess in recovery.
Yeah, that's what I
it took me some time, but so in the big book, they talk about having a psychic change, right? But a lot of people, what they don't do is next to psychic change, there's an asterisk. And that means you got to go back of the book and they have something to write about it. Mm-hmm. And so in the back of the book, what it says about it is that, sometimes it happens very quickly. People have this thing and they change and they're different people. And other times it happens very slowly. But one day you'll wake up and you walk different, you talk different, you look different, you act different.
Yep.
And so the day that I woke up and I had read that, and I thought to myself, I said, wow, it did happen to me. I did have the psychic change. I thought it didn't happen. I was like, when's it happening? Sure. Where's the bright light?
Sure.
But it did happen. It just took time. And so that was cool for me to be like, wow, I'm such a different person. I can't believe it. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Dag Jan Galt again. What was your drug of choice? Did you ever relapse? How did it start? Well, what was your drug of choice specifically? Because we know you.
Oxys.
Yeah.
Mainly.
Why? They hook you or
enjoy
just,
them?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very addictive, and they were plentiful down here. And that crack, ecstasy. I was kind of a garbage head.
Okay.
But the pills really took me down.
Here's one last one. I think this is a good one. Sober JFT said xylazine. It's too quiet about this insane combo of chemical death with little prayer hands. Tell. I know you've talked about this before. Touch on it.
Yeah. So I keep telling everybody we're not in an opioid crisis. We're in a chemical crisis. People just want to try anything to feel different. That's why I so believe in the harm reduction. I don't believe in making all this stuff illegal because people are just going to find it no matter what. We really need to treat the root cause of why people are so. I mean, humans have always loved this stuff. That's what humans love. We go, ooh, coffee, ooh, sugar,
Right.
We're just stupid animals, right? But Xylozine's very scary. You know, the Narcan will work on the fentanyl, but it doesn't work on all the things that xylazine might do to your body. So there's an issue with that. There's a huge issue with open wounds. There's a massive issues with detoxes, not having proper protocols to even treat these people. You know, so a lot of these individuals are left with no real resource to get better because the detox is different. And detoxes are not hospitals. So that's been a huge issue. And the fact of the matter is that xylozine's been around for at least 5 years now. I've known about it for years, but it's mainly been in Kensington, and no one cares about those people. Everyone there should be fired as well, okay? And no one cared. No one gave a shit. And so no one tried to make it so that these people could get better or do research on it, except for the people there like Savage Sisters, Sarah, awesome people up there. If you're looking to volunteer, I definitely suggest reaching out to them. I'm sure they can use your help. But yeah, it's pathetic that it's been around for this long and there's still so little out there to help individuals either test for the xylazine in their drugs or to help treat them, or to incorporate wound care, or to allow addiction medical professionals like doctors to treat people for opioid use disorder while they're staying in a hospital with infections and other stuff like that. Because the reality of the situation is when people get these kind of infections, they have to go to the hospital. And they're petrified to go there. And that's why they're losing legs, losing arms. Like, that's why this is happening, because there's no protocol once they're in there to tame their withdrawal symptoms. So why would they get help? So I don't know who's in charge, if there's a drug czar somewhere, but y'all got to figure it out. It's pathetic. And
Beautiful.
Alley Rant. Okay.
Beautiful. End scene.
End scene.
On the Alley Rant, ladies and gentlemen.
I think we're like out of time.
All right.
Well, I think this might have been a long one, but I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my story for the first time. I know it's been years and years, and maybe I've never really posted about it, but I hope you enjoy it. I'm positive this episode will get demonetized from YouTube, so if you'd like to support this channel, there's a link down below where you can donate. Really appreciate it. Anytime I mention a drug, for some reason, I'm demonetized. And yeah, I love you all so, so much. And I'm going to freaking Yellowstone. I'm going to die. I'm so excited. I cannot believe that I was this junkie kid who was able to manage to like make a trip to the West. I'm in awe. I'm so excited about it. It feels like a dream. So I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next week.